Hello everyone. This is Enamul Haq from Bangladesh again in the month of March. Last month we were talking. We started our episode. I think the world has changed after that. Completely changed with the start of the Iran, US, and Israeli war, particularly that has happened since the 28th of February. And today, with the 29th of March, uh, that we are looking at the world is a completely different world. Nobody expected it. Every country in the globe is now looking at their purse, looking at their budget, what to do and what not to do. Oil price around the world is rising, and there has been a lot of property or asset damage in the Middle East, both from the Iranian side as well as from the Middle Eastern Arab countries. Most of them has lost many of their assets, particularly assets related to natural gas, petroleum, and at the same time, more than 13 US uh, military bases are affected because of the war. Israel, almost untouchable for many, many years, is also seeing the damage. They have never expected that. So, with that in the world, uh, I think none of us are sure what to look at it, how to look at it. We don't know how it will end at the moment. But what we know, it is going to affect the whole world. So, with that, let me bring Philip Shah, my friend from Canada, to explain how he and the Western world is looking at this conflict. Phil.
Thank you very much, Enamel, and nice to be back here after a month with East-West viewers. But this conflict that has happened since we last got together certainly did change the world, like Dr. Hawk has said. And like I think it can be rather novel or simple sometimes to talk about these conflicts, but there's been an awful lot of people die in this process. I think maybe 2,000 or more so far in Iran. Who knows how many in Israel? And of course, there's been deaths in places like the UAE, Qatar, Kuwait. Missiles
And
been
you and
lobbed.
you and you remember the children that were killed in one of the Iranian school on the first day.
Yes, I was going to bring that up. I think there was way over 130 young girls that were killed when from a Western perspective, when an errant bomb went into a girls' school. You think with the technology we have in 2026, that would never happen. So, regardless of these big world events, and we talk about all of these macroeconomic things that might happen from this thing that we never expected, it's important to keep in mind when we see the Star Wars types of missiles going through the sky, that there's really human suffering going on and people are losing their lives, and it's pretty tough to watch. From a Western perspective, Iran has always been a little bit of a pariah from a Western perspective. It goes back 37 or so many years since the end of the Shah's ruled in Iran with the Islamic Revolution, and then the kidnapping or the hostage taking at the American embassy in Iran. The American government has never ever forgot about that, and it always has meant for a very frosty relationship between Iran and many parts of the West over that period of time. Also, too, I can remember something very close to me. In 2020, I visited Bangladesh, and we flew into Dubai, and then from Dubai we went to Dhaka. However, a week before, a Ukrainian airliner was shot out of the sky in Iran on takeoff from Tehran, which was full of Canadians. And there was Canadians that went to the University of Guelph, the University of Windsor, all places around me here. And it was very difficult for the Canadian government to get answers about who shot down that jet. It was ultimately determined that it was shot down by the Iranian military, but very poor cooperation between Iranian officials and whatnot to document the dead and reparations and the whole nine yards. It's not done today, still not done today. And that's the type of behavior in some ways is seen from Iran over the last 40 years. And, I just remember it was very difficult when we were flying over there that, we were thinking, what kind of territory you're flying over. Because I've flown over Iran many times on the way to Bangladesh and on the way back. But having said all that, I'm particularly myself, I have nothing against the Iranian people and nothing against, I don't like any of the time there's this type of killing going on. I remember very clearly years and years ago when we were students at the University of Guelph that I was pointed out to me a Iraqi student that was a student at Guelph but he fought in the Iraq-Iran war and he didn't have much to say. And we thought maybe there's some
Musa,
vestige of
Musa.
the trauma that he had went through. But here we are arriving in 2026, and since the last time we talked, we have all this major disruption with the United States and Israel attacking Iran and bombing almost anything that moves on both sides. And what end is there to this? We've had huge economic disruption with the price of oil not quite doubling, but close to doubling and maybe going up further for the price in Brent in Europe and West Texas crude in the United States. And that is really affecting the economies around the world, whether it's in Bangladesh, whether they're going to go to a place where not everybody goes to work and they work from home, or in Canada, where somebody like me has the energy cost doubling for diesel fuel and distillates, for instance, that I fill up with farm machinery to work my fields, and just multiply that across all the energy consuming implements that we have in United States agriculture, Canadian agriculture, and the world abroad. It's just a big shock. And so here we sit on March 30th, over a month since this thing started, and there's really no end to it. It's hard to see an end to it. Yes, you can say that Mr. Trump said the war's over, but really, he says a lot of things. And the bottom line is the first casualty in any war is truth. So earlier I was talking to Dr. Hawk, and he said that he was listening to Russian television. He's listening to television from Singapore. He's listening to news from these different sites to try to find out what the truth is. I'm doing the same thing. I listen to American media, Canadian media. I listen to Al Jazeera and the BBC, trying to find out what's the truth. Meanwhile, in a place like Sudan, the war rages and nobody ever hears about it. So, there's little bit of a dichotomy here, but I think the thing that, I'd like this thing to end, but I don't see any end to it because Iran's a big country. So is the United States. I suppose the biggest military powers can dictate and try to spin the story any way they want. But I just don't see this ending very quickly going forward. Uh, Whether who bombs somebody more or not. I just don't see the end to it. So I'll throw it back to Dr. Hawk, and maybe he can enlighten us on maybe the zero sum game and what may happen or may not. But that's where we stand, and that's where we find ourselves right now.
Thank you. No, I think, Phil, I agree with most of your analysis. What I see is, starting from 2022, when the Ukraine war started, I think that's where the Europe was isolating themselves out of Russian gas, Russian fuel, energy. And now you see the impact. Now the Europe is in the biggest soup, because in other words, they don't have access to the Middle Eastern oil. They don't have connection to the Russian. And for them, I think it's much bigger difficulty than anybody else. So they actually realize that we are suffering from it. Particularly this war, probably, I'm not sure, probably Trump did not talk with the Western leaders before going into the war. I think if he had done it, he would have get a better advice what to do and what not to do. But because he's alone in this, and he thought probably the US intelligence was not good enough to know what is the potential strength of Iran. Because the more we see from the war point of view, it's a stalemate. We don't know who is going to win. And we don't know how to win this. If you want to win this particular game, either one side has to agree that you won and I have been defeated. And I don't see that coming so far. neither Israel nor United States nor Iran will say that let us accept the defeat. So given this scenario, I think the if there is a good things prevail, one thing might happen because of the current uprising within the United States, at least within the United States, and the election coming in the United States. If that is an issue, and if that goes to the head of the President Trump, he might say, "Thank you very much. I have changed the regime, and I have defeated their army to some extent, killed their army chief, killed their naval chief, killed their intelligence. Thank you very much. My job is done for now." That's one way to end it. So that's possibly the one way I see ending it. If it does not happen, we are in a long haul. And a long haul means the war is going to continue for a long time. The destruction will be strong on both sides. Remember, don't forget, the Arab states right now, Dubai is in big soup because Dubai was trying to portray or at least present themselves, we talked about it, as another center of finance in the world, and is gone because now people who were thinking of settling in Dubai, putting their money in Dubai, they will be thinking twice before doing it. Previously, more thinking was Americans are there to protect them, so they will be protected. Now that feeling is also gone. So, given that, I think the suffering will be also on many of the Middle Eastern countries, and in a different way, it will affect Bangladesh also in a different way. What I'm saying is different way because a lot of our workers are in the Middle East. If the war ends quickly, probably the rebuilding will require more worker from Bangladesh, which is not a bad thing. But if the war continues, we are in a big soup, every one of us. So I think good sense prevailed, and at least at one point, but the other point that I feel is that even if the U.S. withdraws, I don't see how the game will be ending between Israel and Iran because there are three parties. US might say, let me go back, but Israel is not going to agree. Neither Iran is going to agree. And remember, there are also Yemenis involved in it now, and Lebanese, the Hezbollah group is also involved in it. So, and very soon, if United States is not there, even the within Palestinian, there will be uprising. So I can see the game is, in a really difficult one. The only survive, if you want to put it in a different way, American withdrawal would be creating a sense, and probably they can contain the rest. In other words, the rest of the world will come forward and say, let us stop the war. But if the Americans do not withdraw, nobody is going to come forward, and they're going to watch things go down. And the more the war happens within Middle East, remember the other side, Ukraine is going to be defeated very soon. So I can see the connectivity. And the third thing that is happening, which is oil market, Europe is in trouble. And remember, we started one of our episodes long time ago when we said that with the SWIFT movement of the SWIFT, particularly isolating Russia, that was a bad move. And now the whole trust, I think to me, the trust does not exist. Europeans seem to be not trusting United States, or at least the President Trump. Canadians don't trust President Trump. So if there is no trust within the world, it's very difficult to solve a particular problem. And I think around the world, even in Bangladesh government, each Indian government, they're all looking probably to the God to give us a solution.
Well, I never thought of that. I never thought of that, but maybe that's what we're thinking. Or maybe that's one option. But keep in mind that I don't really like to criticize President Trump simply because it's low hanging fruit, and there's all kinds of people that do that.
Mhm.
Like I just told the audience that I rely on BBC, Al Jazeera, and a whole bunch of other media sources to tell me what the truth is. But the bottom line is the intelligence reports that the American president has is probably much better than mine, or the Iranian leaders as well. Um, so it's difficult to say. You would just think that there was mistakes made. Intelligence has been wrong before because this is not passing the smell test because the American public has no appetite for a long war in Iran or anything like that. So we'll have to see what happens. The other thing is we talked about the de-dollarization in previous episodes, and you talked about it in your comments here to some extent with the SWIFT system. All of this is just going to accelerate that. All of this is just going to accelerate that. And the payment in currencies other than the US dollars will probably increase. It certainly already has in Asia, whether you're trading in oil between China and Iran and places like that, but it's all going to accelerate that. So there, frankly, there's not a lot of good, not a lot of good that comes out of that of this. I don't know how it's going to end. You've given us several scenarios. And that could be the Americans might just pull up, claim victory, and leave, but that's certainly going to leave an unstable situation as we move forward.
No, I think there is probably you are right that we do not have enough information, where a lot of our discussion is speculative. Probably President Trump has more information than anyone else, and probably he is playing his game. We don't know. But unless and until there is a trust back within the global economy, within the global leaders around the world, I think the whole world will be moving into a topsy-turvy movement. There will be a movement from here and there, and things will be going from worse to worst. In other words, things are not going to be very stable until the global world has come up with the conclusion of trusting each other, respecting each other. Remember, the respecting sovereign rights are very important. And if we cannot bring it back, I am not sure whether this is the last war or this is the beginning of many other wars, because sovereign issues are very much everywhere. Everywhere there is a conflict with borders. Everywhere there is conflict with. So remember, the role of the world is to keep a trust within the system, and I think that is very important. Right now, if I remember well, the Iranians are considering getting out of NPT, which is Non-Proliferation Treaty, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. And if that happens, you are going to create another trouble for the whole world. So I can see that for me, I want to see a trust back among the leaders, global leaders. And I want to see the world order back as it was before probably 2022. So that there is a solution to this for humanity.
Unfortunately, I think that's an indictment. I agree with you. Trust is a great thing. That's what we need back. So
Yes.
it's just kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy. But I would agree with you. Got to get trust back, but certainly from here, it seems like a long way away now, based on what's happened over the last 30 days.
With that, thank you, everyone, and let us hope the
Thank
world
you.
comes back to a global order so that trust is back. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.